Okay, I'm going to call to order the regular meeting of the VIA Board of Trustees. And we'll start off, first of all, with a moment of reflection as we prepare to deal with our issues in the coming meeting. Thank you. Let's follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. First of all, I'd like to see if we have a report from the President and CEO. And I might just mention, we're going to try to move in and out of the agenda in a way that helps accommodate our citizens who are here to speak. We're going to go through the first part, the announcements and the presentations to some of our employees, and then go to citizens to be heard. Then we'll recess the VIA board meeting and take up the ATD board meeting, because there's going to be a lengthy presentation or discussion on our bond issuance coming up. And so we want to get that after we hear from the citizens and give them a chance to get their input, so they don't have to wait an hour and a half like they did last time we had the meeting. So with that in mind, Jeff, do you have anything to report?
Sure. First of all, I have three specific recommendations, but before I do that, I would like to do a general recognition of the VIA staff. You know, a week ago, VIA operated special event service that linked the AT&T Center to the downtown area and the Alamo Dome in celebration of the Spurs championship. Everything we do is really sized to peak hour service in the evening, and so the number of operators we have and the number of vehicles we have are sized to that demand. When we have to run service in addition to that service, it becomes a real challenge to the staff. And so our maintenance people had to get extra buses ready, our transportation people had to identify operators to run them, we had to get supervisors out there, we had to get staff to the various facilities to help with the service to the general public. I want to recognize, therefore, the entire organization for the efforts that everyone put forth in moving over 8,000 people, and that was a fantastic job. And then I also want to recognize the foresight of whomever was involved in developing Robert Thompson Transit Center, because that facility really is an asset, and we couldn't do everything we do without that facility. But for all the employees of VIA, I'd like to thank you for what you did for the community last Wednesday, as well as what you do every single day.
Let's give our employees a round of applause, please.
Last month I talked about the VIA Youth Art Contest and the Best of Show. The annual art contest is a citywide competition, grades pre-K through 12, and we received 4,500 entries and hosted a luncheon honoring those. The chairman and Mr. Miller joined us for that. Today we are able to bring our Best of Show winner, Miss Paula Flores, who is an 8th grader at Tejada Middle School in the Northeast ISD. She'll be in high school this fall. Paula, would you come forward if you'd come forward over by your piece of art. We have the bus on display. Her artwork is wrapped on a bus that tours the city. She's shown a special talent for arts since she was little. Drawing and music is her passion. Has played the violin since grade 5, and in middle school she became part of her school's honor orchestra and made regional orchestra all 3 years of middle school. One of the many students that have auditioned for the regional orchestra in 2012, she made it as concert master first chair. So it's just not art, music as well. She's also won Outstanding Performance Awards 3 years in a row at her school orchestra. In 7th grade, her drawing won the Special Achievement Award in Visual Arts Contest. In the fall, she will attend Johnson High School, where she has been accepted into the Varsity High School Orchestra. Paula continues to enjoy drawing and reading in her free time and spends time with her family. She hopes to do something great with her drawing and music skills in the future. You've already done something great, and so kudos to you. All the winning artwork is in the lobby, so let's all recognize Paula. And would you take a picture with her? We'll have, yeah.
I get a chance to thank Mr. Paula. I know parents are very proud
All right, secondly, I'd like to recognize a group here. Via Metropolitan Transit received recognition from the San Antonio Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for our business supplier diversity initiatives during the Business Opportunity Diversity Awards, BODA, reception June 11th, held at the Freeman Expo Hall in conjunction with the 5th Annual Max Navarro Small Business Summit. The BODA moniker, I understand, was selected by someone who was recognized by every award recipient, both public sector and private sector. Everyone recognized the efforts and contributions of the former Hispanic Chamber Chairman, Alex Briseño. We received the Public Sector Award for the use of the most locally owned businesses in procurement efforts, part of our Business Supplier Diversity Program. On hand to accept the award were VIA Chairman and the former Hispanic Chamber Chairman, Alex Briseño, myself, Charlie Gonzalez, our Senior VP of Public Engagement, Dr. Diane Mendoza, and then a number of staff people who manned a booth throughout the day because this was an opportunity for networking. And so Eddie Cruz, Ashley Ramirez, Azanet Sandoval, and Albert Gonzalez, and Kim Turner were all there. If you'd stand up and let us recognize you for your efforts that day as well as through the year. Finally,
Get the plaque?
oh yeah, yes. We'll take their picture. Alex, you have to do that.
Boy, girl, boy, girl. Congratulations. Judge, if I could elaborate on that a little bit.
Sure.
I think part of this recognition is important. This was for the use of local firms in contracting. And as we embark on significant projects in the future and the ongoing operations that we have, the commitment the VA has to the DBE program is noteworthy to recognize. And it means a lot that a lot of local firms get the opportunity to take advantage of that. The BODA Awards, Business Opportunity Development Awards, BODA, as many of you know, in Spanish means marriage, wedding. And so it's the marriage between the public sector investment and the private sector investment, and that's what we're seeing here recognizing today. And I want to commend our staff for doing a great job in winning the award. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. My last recognition, I'd like to ask bus operator Ryan Hirschfield to come up front. The chairman will join you for the picture as well.
Okay.
Hi, Ryan. On Saturday, June 7th at about 6:45 p.m., Ryan was working Route 51, passing on Zazamoro, when he noticed a toddler walking on the sidewalk. He was concerned for the child's safety, obviously, and so he stopped to assist. Another motorist also stopped, and between the two of them, they reconnected this child who was wandering with his guardians. And so a big problem was likely very much averted. And I really, I think our operators every day are heroes out there, but this is a special effort, and we wanted to make sure that Ryan was recognized, and we all thank you for going that extra step. That's part of what it is to be in public service. So thank you so much.
Let me just add, a lot of times when you're in public service and you're held accountable, properly accountable for delivering services, but rarely are our public servants, like our operators, thanked, for their work. And a lot of times you hear about public employees saying, that's not my job, it's not my job, I'm giving the runaround. If this is the case, where this young man said, it is my job to solve this problem, and went out of his way to solve the problem. So I think it's important that we recognize our employees that do that, and he said, on an everyday basis.
Right.
And I think we all witness that on an ongoing basis. So thanks again to our employees.
That concludes my report.
Thank you. With that brings us to item 4 in our agenda, which is the citizens to be heard section of our agenda. And with that, I'll turn it over to
Mr. Chairman, we have 8 citizens to be heard tonight. As your name is called, you're welcome to come up to the front to make your comments. If you'd rather make the comments from where you sit, please raise your hand and a microphone will be brought to you. Our first citizen, Elida Gutierrez, is yielding her time to Eric Gutierrez, who is the next citizen. He gets a total of 6 minutes. Eric Gutierrez.
Good afternoon. My name is Eric Luis Gutierrez, and I represent myself and thousands of voiceless VIA riders and citizens of San Antonio. I'd first like to thank the Board of Trustees for this opportunity to speak. As I did during my first board meeting I spoke a few months ago, I'd like to extend my gratitude for the special moment of silence and to the Pledge of Allegiance of our great nation. To this day, I'm still telling my friends and family that that is recognized here at VIA. The last time I was here was my first board meeting to speak. As I recall, Mr. Briseño, it was your first board meeting as well. I mentioned how I remember as a small child you managed our city very well. My grandmother would always speak very highly of you. I would like to thank VIA on a wonderful job improving the methods of our means of mass transportation. Over the years, VIA, in my opinion, has done nothing but advance and ease the way I get around town. I truly thank you in advance for the investments and improvements that are and are to come. During my first meeting, I addressed a few concerns regarding customer service. I know many people here in this room are here to protest and negatively speak against advancements in our community. However, I'm not here to address such concerns. I'm here again to speak about getting back to the basics of customer service. I'd like to read a letter that I wrote to Ms. Alva Carrasco, Dr. Mendoza, and Ms. Sylvia Mendiola. On Thursday, June 5th, 2014, I was on my way home to the south side from North Star Mall. I took the number 3 San Pedro route and got off at the corner of St. Mary's and Commerce. I was hoping to take the 5162 lineup at 10:30. I arrived at the stop at 10:25. However, there were only 2 buses other than mine lined up. I waited around until 10:40 and realized that my bus had either departed early or was extremely late. I decided to go for a quick bite to eat and wait till the 11:30 lineup. During the time I was eating, I noticed that the Spurs had just won the game and the Spurs fans were already hitting the Commerce Market strips. When I left the restaurant, SAPD had blocked off 2 lanes of St. Mary's at Commerce southbound. I decided to walk over to the VIA stop on St. Mary's at Market in front of Big on the Banks. At that stop, there was approximately 10 to 15 riders waiting. The time now was 11:20, and some of the riders at the stop were getting what I would describe as nervous because there were no buses lining up, where they usually do by that time. I overheard many conversations of the riders stating that they were stranded the last time the Spurs won. There was an SAPD officer posted in his vehicle at the southwest corner of St. Mary's and Market in front of a Sushi Zushi. I asked him if any bus traffic was going to be let through the intersection. He said there was no traffic going to be let through. I told him that there were several riders, including myself, that were going to be left stranded, so he advised me to cross the street and consult VIA supervisor. As I approached the officer at the northeast corner of St. Mary's and Market, a handicapped elderly rider was already speaking to him. She was asking him the very same question, where the buses were lining up. I thought I was going to get a simple answer. What happened next was absolutely appalling. The officer was not answering her question, so I interrupted him and asked him why he was not directing us, where we needed to go, and he responded to me as, "Shut up. I'm not speaking to you. Wait your turn." I was in disbelief that I was being spoken into this manner. The woman in the wheelchair was in shock as well. He told us to go back to our stops and just wait. However, I advised him that the SAPD officer right across the street had just told me that the street was completely closed and no traffic, including VIA, was going to be let through. The officer continued to raise his voice and disrespect both of us and told us to get out of his face. At this time, it was complete pandemonium with the Spurs traffic. I told the woman in the wheelchair to follow me to the corner of St. Mary's and Commerce. I promised her I would get her home. She was in an electric scooter wheelchair. I stayed by her side until we made contact with another security officer, supervisor, at the corner. I noticed the first officer followed us. As we approached the officer, there was another couple asking the same question regarding the buses, where the buses were. The time now was 11:40. No buses in sight. This couple was clearly upset because the second supervisor they made contact with was telling them the same thing, that he did not know where the buses were or where they were going to show up. I immediately interceded and made it very clear that this was complete nonsense. So at this point, it was me, the lady in the wheelchair, and the other couple in front of these two supervisors. I asked them for their name and badge numbers, which they refused. Both supervisors were out of line as they were yelling and telling us to leave their area. The first VIA supervisor walked away as we were trying to get the information from the second one. The second officer was even more belittling than the first one. We were being treated as low-class citizens. A few moments later, a group of SAP officers showed up and approached me, the couple, and the lady in the wheelchair, and told them that we were harassing them. I spoke up for the group and told the SAPD officer that this was absolutely ridiculous. How are we harassing? The officer told us that he knew that we were not harassing and apologized on their behalf. He told us due to the Spurs fan pandemonium, the buses might be somewhere else because they were surely not coming through this closed intersection. He said he would try to help us find our way. I thanked him for his kindness, but also advised him that this was not his duty. It was duty of those two VIA employees to help us find our way. He agreed. At this point, the elderly lady was in tears. I pulled out $25 out of my wallet and told her to go to the nearest hotel and have a valet call a cab. I told the SAPD officer that what they were doing. The supervisors were making hand gestures and taunting us. And I know I'm out of time, and I apologize. I had someone else to relinquish their time. There was a concern in regards to this situation that I've been in contact with Ms. Carrasco and Ms. Mendoza, and I wish I had more time.
Is there a way for a board member to yield time to a citizen? Okay,
How much more time do you need?
how much more time do you need?
3 minutes, maybe? Maybe not
Okay.
even that much.
I move
good.
that we give him 3 minutes.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, the elderly lady was in tears. I gave her my money. She went to the nearest hotel to get her. I promised I'd get her home. During our conversation with the SAPD officers, the supervisors were making hand gestures and taunting us. I told the SAPD officer what they were doing, and he turned around and made a comment for them to stop. I was looking for a paper to write down the name of the SAPD officer. I happened to still have a VIA folder I received at a corridor analysis meeting. The officer saw my folder and asked if I worked for VIA, and I told him no. He said, if you did, these guys would surely be in trouble. For a moment, I wish I was a VIA official to have taken immediate action against these VIA supervisors. The elderly lady left in tears as I instructed her to a hotel. The couple and I walked over to the southeast corner of St. Mary's and Commerce and tried to find out what we were going to do. The SAPD officers I thought were going to walk over with us so I can get information, but as I turned around, I realized that they had to leave due to all the commotion and traffic and people. As we walked across the street to the corner, the VIA officers made a racist comment, which I will not say completely. They said, yeah, get out of here, you effing NIGERS. Go find your bus. The couple I was with was African American, and so was the lady in the wheelchair. The woman became irate and wanted to confront them. I held her back and said a prayer and told her it was not worth it. I took out my phone and took pictures of them as they were making these comments to identify themselves. As I was taking these pictures, the VIA supervisors began to take pictures of us with their iPads. I honestly had to hold back myself as well. I asked the couple to give me their information so I could use it in this notice, and they replied, it's okay, even if they are reported, VIA does not care about us. Look how we were treated. They went on to say that they were going to take action on their own and those supervisors should watch their backs. They refused to give me their names due to that. I couldn't take any more of this nonsense. I walked over to a former employer of mine, hailed a cab, and went home. As you can imagine, my heart was broken to see this travesty, and I'm not able to comprehend the motive of these supervisors. and I'm here to address this, and I know that it's something's in the works. It's already been addressed with Sylvia, I'm sorry, with Diane and Alva, but I wanted to come share this today because it's just been bothering me ever since then. Thank you so much for your time. Oh, one last thing. I wanted to mention a bus driver that I ran into several times. His name is Gabriel Torres. Every time I run into this gentleman, he's absolutely courteous, nice to everyone on the bus. He looks like he is just so happy to be at work, and I want to make it a mission of mine to at least recognize one operator a month if I can, because there's so many out there that do a great job. Thank you very much.
Willie
Thank you for your
Mae
comments.
Clay.
Good evening. First of all, I want to give kudos to the board, to anyone who was instrumental in making some changes in your agenda this time around. You didn't have the citizens wait long periods, and I appreciate that. And I'm sure the other citizens that have comments to be made, they appreciate those things as well. Contrary to, this is third-party information, contrary to what was reported that the individual in the wheelchair had said, VIA does care. And I want you to know that this isn't the first time I've come to a VIA board meeting. And this isn't the first time that I've spoken as citizens to be heard. VIA does care. And I don't waste my time speaking to a body of folk if I didn't think you didn't care. Well, routinely, when we speak as citizens to be heard, we get a response about 2 weeks prior to the next VIA board meeting. And when I arrived 2 previous meetings ago, I spoke about the subject of 30-minute window. And if you remember correctly or were actively listening, I did not oppose the 30-minute window. I told you about the ineffectiveness of the 30-minute window. I told you matter-of-factly that I was being picked up late. And I said that you need to look at the 30-minute window that you approved last year. Now listen, this is the response that I received. I'm just giving you excerpts. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It said, thank you for voicing your opposition to the 30-minute window. And it goes on to say the Federal Transit Administration regulations allow a transit agency to use this pickup window for a vehicle to be considered on time for a customer pickup. Now let me stress, on time. Before you implemented and approved the 30-minute window last year, I voiced my opposition then.
Ferris Hodge.
But these 2 previous times that I've been coming, I didn't oppose it. I told you there was something wrong with it. And I told you to look at it. And that's my position today. But I'm here to tell you, let me quickly say, if I can talk fast enough. Since I was here last time, there's been an improvement. They've been picking me up on time. So somebody's been listening. And I give kudos to the management. And I know the drivers are under pressure, but there has been an improvement. And I want to thank you for that. It's made a difference. Appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll continue to
Ferris
work on that.
Hodge.
At the last meeting, y'all didn't give us enough time to speak, Mr. Bazinho. and that was wrong. Y'all don't give us number 3 lousy minutes, and that is wrong. They used to give us a transcript. VIA would give everybody a transcript what we talked about. VIA don't do that. VIA write what they want to write about, talk what they want to talk about. I said that y'all should give y'all's employees a 15% pay raise. Your retirement employees, I think y'all got about 250 that could retire if they had a decent pay raise. Y'all insurance, y'all did away with when they retire. And I think that VIA is doing a sorry job on that. What happened to the transcript we used to get? Nobody knows. But I'm going to put this back in the minutes. And when we talk about stuff, y'all need to put it in the minutes and stop putting what you want to put in the minutes. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. D-1-GN-13-004230 in the District Court of Travis County, Texas, 126 jurisdiction. I wanted to read that back in the minutes. That was not in the minutes, and it was not part of y'all so-called letter that y'all sent us. And I got a few more things. How much did VIA lose on that Spurs game? Go Spurs, go! VIA lost millions of dollars by letting them ride the bus free. If we are short 5 cents or 4 cents, some of y'all drivers wants to call the police on us, and it's not right. This man had always rode the bus, and he was short 4 cents, and the lady said, I'm going to call the VIA police. I said, no, you're not. I said, you are 25 minutes late, you get paid, the police department get paid, the fire department get paid, everybody gets paid, and that VIA Trans building that y'all wants to build on the west side, it should just be called West Side VIA, period. Not named after no Indian, not named after me, not named after Mr. Bazinho, not named after anybody, okay? It's the west side. Y'all are freezing us on these buses. They are 70 degrees, and we're just freezing to death. I told that driver, I said, why you got this thing so low? He said, well, it's just the way it is. Okay, I said, well, we'll talk to VIA about that. And we still have a problem with the fare boxes. We had 15 fare boxes broke down in the last 30 days. Y'all lost a lot of money on that. The VIA Information Center at Crossroads need to be open on Saturdays. Crossroads, Randolph, and other parking rides, the places smell filthy. I don't want to use the word funky. Filthy, okay? I'm cleaning my language. I don't want to use that word. And y'all need to do that. The fire department don't give us enough time. The police department in the downtown area. Where is y'all's policemen? So anyway, I want the transcript from the last 3 months because y'all don't give us the transcript. I got more to talk about, but I'm going to stay within the 3 minutes. And Mr. Bazinho, when you was at City Hall, you was the city manager, and you know what it is not to give people enough time. That's all I'm going to say on that. Y'all have a good day. And y'all remember my song, You Are My Sunshine. That's my theme song for VIA. All right. I feel better now.
I wish you could respond.
Guillermo Ramirez Long.
I wish you could respond.
Thank you very much. I'm here to speak on behalf of Streetcar. Just today, I was sent a notice by one of my beloved professors. I got both my undergrad and graduate degree from St. Mary's University, and they sent me what I'm going to call some propaganda against Streetcar from LULAC, and it upset me enough to make me to want to come out today. And what I'd like to do in the short amount of time is read a portion of an op-ed by Blaine Tucker, a San Antonio attorney, that was in the Express News this week. Much has ensued regarding VIA Metropolitan Transit's funding of the streetcar project. As unique as San Antonio is as a city, I don't think this should be an area where we set ourselves apart from progress in the 21st century when vehicle congestion will worsen as we continue to grow. The plan will reduce bus traffic by 60% downtown after all. Without going into further reasoning, however, the debate is over because the issue has already been decided under Texas law. According to Texas transportation law, the VIA board is mandated to adopt a strategic plan that establishes the authority, mission, and goals. The plan must set policies and service priorities to guide the authority in developing a budget and allocating resources. The law also states that a transit authority exercises public and essential governmental functions and is a matter of public necessity. An authority may acquire, construct, develop, own, operate, and maintain a transit authority system and shall determine routes. VIA held the necessary public meetings, and the public support for the streetcar project was overwhelming. But supporters have gone into hiding since the funding became approved. It's only now that outside special interests have funded an effort to revisit the topic. The streetcar system will be built using existing funds, and since no new tax is needed, a referendum isn't permitted under Texas law. Since the legislature has deferred transit authority to the VIA board, the decision is law. The appropriate vehicle for challenging any valid law or decision in this instance is with the legislature. Opponents want the public to think that if enough people sign the petition to amend the city charter, this could reverse the already funded program by invalidating the authority of the VIA board. What the special interest groups are not telling the public is that taxpayers would be responsible for the $1 million bill if this turns into an actual judiciable controversy fought in a courtroom among competing governmental entities. Hopefully, at some point, this becomes an issue that we don't have to discuss any longer, and we can go back to discussing a bigger issue, which is gas tax reform. We need to make sure that that issue is revisited since it hasn't been since the early 90s. Thank you.
Lori Zertucci.
Yes, my name is Laurie Zertucci, 3943. I want to thank you for responding to my concerns about the severe weather concern. But y'all said that people can cancel an hour before if they know the weather's going to be bad. But I'm talking about like what I was talking about was if people are on the vehicle and the weather doesn't look threatening, but people already let the VIA receive messages already that they somehow relay to the driver that the weather is going to be severe and the person has a choice to go home or not. That's what I was concerned about, when people are on the van already. And they also said you can also go by the city management. You go by the city management, what they tell y'all about severe weather. Many people's places of employment doesn't allow their employees to listen to music, or they have what they call like Muzak or satellite music, and those stations do not play any kind of news or information. So that's what I was trying to discuss at the last month's meeting about if you're on the van already and VIA gets information ahead of time before people get to their destination. Because on the vans, whether it's the big vans or the Star Shuttle, they're not allowed to listen to radio either. Thank you.
George Alejos.
Good evening. My name is George Alejos. I'm with LULAC Concilio Zapatista 4383. And I'm here to offer rebuttal to the young gentleman's previous presentation about LULAC's involvement in this issue. We got involved because of the fact that we are in the fight for the people of this city that use bus service. I'm talking about the east side, west side, and south side, which we have reason to believe will never use the streetcars because they don't have to and they don't have a need for that. You're supposed to provide the most efficient, inexpensive transportation to this city and its bus ridership. And streetcars is not the answer, gentlemen. I'm looking at your agenda today, and you're pretty soon going to go into a session. But in looking at items 6, 7, 10, and 13B, it's all about streetcars. Apparently, you still have plans to go forward with this project. And believe me, the citizens are going to speak, because come November, we will have this on the ballot to change the city charter. We have the necessary signatures right now that we have accumulated. And I spoke with Detective Helly, the president of the San Antonio Police Officers Association last week. He said, George, we're committed to join you, the coalition, and the firefighters to kill the streetcars. I said, do I have your permission to use your name? You have my permission, sir. I do not like the publicity, but you have my permission to say that we are behind you. So when Detective Helly and his rank and file people join us in an effort to gain the necessary signatures, we're going to surpass that. And regardless of what former Congressman Gonzalez says about the fact that it's not going to do any good because the legislature gives you power to do streetcars, well, we'll take issue to that. Only because we do not want the city or the county to donate or give you any money for streetcars. I don't care if you go out and get all the money you can outside of the county and city coffers, because you made a promise to the citizens of this community in 2004 that you would never use funds from the ATD for this purpose. So come November, it's going to be on the referendum. We will vote in it, and the city will have to back out and say, you know what, the amount we contributed or promised to contribute, it's going to go away. And the county giving $90-some-odd thousand to TxDOT and then TxDOT giving it back to you guys, in my opinion, is money laundering. So you need to listen to the constituents and the people of this community. I don't know what part of no you don't understand, if it's the N or the O, but believe me, come November, the citizens will speak. And when 90% of the people are against streetcars, you need to listen to that. Because, again, some of the officials that have been elected to those positions that currently hold are going to be voted out. And it's just time for us to get back into the business of providing for the citizens of this community the needs to address the needs that they have. Maintenance, senior centers, and so forth. Thank you.
Henry Rodriguez.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the good work that you do. We really appreciate it. We have a very good transit system, better than most cities. Of course, we do have this problem, and this problem is very simple, and that is that the city, Commissioners Court, and this board have no respect for the citizens of this city. Just plain and simple. I told the Commissioners Court today, and I've told the City Council, that each and every district, each and every precinct from Commissioners Court do not want it. Like George said, which part of no it is that you don't understand? They don't want it, you want to shove it down our throats, and you know it. You have no respect whatsoever for the citizens, none whatsoever. Su voto es su voz. That's what Willie Velasquez said. Now you're denying us that. We cannot have a fair fight with you out in the streets, taking it to the people. We cannot. We're at a disadvantage. So what do we have to do? Let me tell you what. Civil disobedience is not out of the question. What else? You give us no choice. They tell us, oh, you're aligning yourself with the Americans for Prosperity. You threw us there. You threw us to them. They want to help. And it is a matter of integrity for the people that want to vote. It happened. We trounced you twice, and we'll do it again. Now you're taking the other way out. It is, and you know what? We respect each and every one of you, but respect us. Respect the power of the vote. That's what you all, the politicians tell us, go out there and register people, and then the people tell us, why should we? They're going to do whatever they want. Perfect example right here. The perfect example. And you should be ashamed of yourselves, and so should the City Council, the ones that are against us, and part of the Commissioners Court. They should be ashamed of themselves. It is something that doesn't fall well with us. LULAC Concilio Zapatista is one of the most active and dynamic LULAC councils anywhere in this country. I say that with a lot of confidence and with a lot of pride, because that's who we are. We have been there, supported your efforts, the efforts of people on the City Council. We have really confronted the powers, other people when, for example, the pre-K 4SA, and now we're with them. We had a beautiful rally some time back. Democrats, Republicans, Tea Partiers, Green Partiers, Libertarians, the Brown Berets. When have you ever seen that? It was a beautiful day because we were speaking as one voice. But today, it's a sad day. We're in a sad state of affairs when you try to downgrade us and say that we cannot vote. And then when you say that the streets belong to you, you can do whatever you want to. We paid for those streets. How dare you say that you can do whatever you want with the streets when we're the ones that paid for them? Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, there are no more citizens to be heard.
Thank you. We'll now recess the VIA board meeting and convene the VIA Advanced Transportation District Board meeting. I'll call that to order. We don't need to reflect anymore. We've done plenty of that. And with that, we'll then go to the consent agenda. And the board has had that before them. The chair will entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
You have a motion, is there a second? Is there a second? You have a motion and a second. Are there any comments or questions, anything anybody wants to pull or discuss? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay, that brings us to item number 4 on our agenda, on our bond purchase agreements. And with that, I believe Steve Lange is making that presentation.
I am going to provide a relatively brief briefing on VIA's bond program with a focus on the upcoming ATD bond issuance. I want to note that we have Richard Ramirez here with First Southwest, and we also have Don Gonzalez with Estrada Hinojosa. They are representatives of our co-financial advisors. As noted on this slide, presentation will include some background information. We'll talk about spending of net bond proceeds. We'll talk about sources and uses of funds on VIA's public bond offerings. The underwriting team will be discussed, and then a timeline will be presented as well. Looking at the background quickly, want to mention that in 2012, VIA did do 4 private placement bond issuances. Key reason for that was to establish different credits. They were for relatively small amounts. All of them were 5.1 million or less, and the intent on most of those was to take them out with subsequent bond issuances, and so the ATD bond issuance that will be forthcoming here soon will take out one of those bond issuances. VIA did price their first 2 public debt offerings in October of 2013. That included an MTA Farebox Revenue and Refunding Bond Series 2013, and then also an ATD Sales Tax Revenue and Refunding Bond Series 2013. The sale of the MTA Farebox Revenue Bonds did in fact close in November of 2013. The ATD Sales Tax Bonds did not close pending some litigation, but we're now ready to move forward with those bonds. If you look at the planned spending, the use of the funds for the upcoming 2014 sales tax revenue bonds, you'll see that the vast majority of the money is going towards smart move projects. However, no money is going towards streetcar. And then we're also picking up some farebox automated fare collection system dollars with that bond issue as well. The 2013 Authority Farebox Revenue Bonds are the bond series that I just mentioned that did close back in November, and the use of funds associated with that bond series is shown there. At the bottom, you'll note that the net proceeds for the 2014 sales tax revenue bonds were $30.2 million, and the net proceeds of the 2013 Authority Farebox Revenue Bonds, $32.9 million. And on the next slide, we'll take a closer look at what the gross amount was and how we got to that net figure. If you look at the Farebox Revenue Bonds, these were the ones that were closed last fall. You'll see down about middle of the page under uses, the first line, we had $32.9 million deposited to the construction fund. Those bonds were for a par amount of $39,965,000, and the total sources of funds actually totaled $41.5 million. There was a premium that was generated on those bonds, and that reflects that the coupon rate was greater than the market rate, and so the investors paid more. And if you look at what the big difference is between the sources of $41.5 million and what went into the construction fund, it was really two items. There was a retirement of one of the 2013 private placement issuances for $5.1 million. And then there was a debt service reserve fund that was required per the bond agreement. That's a $2.82 million figure that was deposited in a reserve to provide some additional security or another layer of protection to the bondholders. That will remain in the reserve until the bonds are eventually paid off. And then, of course, there were some various fees that went to underwriters and the attorneys and for municipal advisory council insurance premiums. On the 2013 ATD sales tax revenue and refunding bonds, again, this deal got tied up in litigation, but this is how the numbers came out on that. The bonds did very well when they sold. A lot of interest in the bonds, and ended up yielding a construction fund amount of $30.221 million. The par amount was $32,925,000. It generated a premium. And again, there was a payoff of an outstanding bond issue that was contemplated, $5.1 million, and then some various professional fees that came out of the proceeds as well. There was not any debt service reserve needed for these bonds. These were a more straightforward bond issue based on a very strong sales tax revenue pledge. We had AAA rating on this bond series, and then whereas the Farebox revenue bonds were a net revenue pledge. And so it was a bit different. If you look at the underwriting team for the ATD sales tax revenue and refunding bond series 2014 that we'll be moving forward with, the recommended underwriting team is the same team that was used for the first bond issue, although M.R. Beal, which was on that first team, ended up going out of business, and so they're being replaced with Cabrera Capital Markets. Cabrera is a minority firm, and they're a local firm as well. And so the underwriting liability of the underwriting team members will be 50% for the lead, and then 12.5% for the other 4 team members. Team members are listed: Emmy Allison, Samco, Stifel Nicholas, Cabrera, and Loop. If you look at the timeline that we're looking at, the first probably 8 lines or so are in the past, various activities related to updating the various documents and things that need to be updated to move forward with the bond issuance. On the 23rd, yesterday, there was a briefing with the board chair. Today, a board meeting, of course. Next step will be on Friday. We'll talk to the rating agency to reaffirm the ATD rating. We'll be asked various questions about things that have transpired since last fall, how things are looking financially, and address any questions that they may have. Hopefully we'll come out with the same rating. And then on another couple key other dates that I want to point out without going through them all is on July 7th, there's a due diligence call with the underwriters. As we did last time, we'll give the underwriters team members an opportunity to kind of grill us on all the details of the transaction, the financials, anything that they might want to know more about to be able to do a good job when they sell the bonds and answer questions from potential investors. On the on July 15th, there is a planned pricing trip to get the bonds priced. The very next day, there would be a special board meeting to approve the bonds. And then finally, on July 23rd, we're showing that as being the projected closing date. And so that was kind of a quick run through of some of the key information. I'll be glad to, along with the financial advisors, address any more detailed questions that you may have or any comments.
Thank you, Steve. Does anybody have any questions? Any questions? I think it was a good briefing. I think the only question I have is just an affirmation by our general counsel that we can now move forward. That's, yes, okay. And so, despite several months of contention and lawsuits, all those have been overcome, and we're now in a position to move forward and close this deal. I think it's also important to note, and you mentioned it, and in passing, but a very important point is a AAA bond rating that VIA enjoys on the ATD sales tax revenue bonds. As many of you, I'm sure you all know, a AAA bond rating is enviable and not easily attained. And the fact that we're able to get that on sales tax revenue bonds reflects the confidence that the rating agencies have in the financial management that VIA has enjoyed over the past several years and the track record that we've enjoyed. And so congratulations to the staff for doing a great job in managing that over the last several years. So with that, this is just a briefing, right? We don't have any action taken. Thank you very much for your attendance. And Don, today is Don Gonzalez's birthday.
Yeah.
So he's here. He's got to go home and blow out his birthday candles. So thanks for being here.
How old are you, Don? Ah, man, you don't look a day over 50.
Thanks for being here.
Brief about that. I was just checking. Wife made sure we all know.
He's turning very red now. Okay, with that, the next item on our agenda is a legal briefing, but my understanding is that this legal briefing is the same as the one on the VIA board agenda, so we're going to supersede this one. I'll now adjourn the meeting of the VIA board as the ATD board, and we will reopen the meeting of the VIA MTA board meeting and move to item number 5, which is a consent agenda. And hopefully, you all have had a chance to review the consent agenda, and the chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, unless there are any items that need to be pulled for individual consideration.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Does anybody have any questions or any comments? Anything they'd like to have pulled to discussed?
No, we just finished ATD.
Hearing none, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Now that brings us then to item number 6, which is our Streetcar Advisory Committee charter, and I believe Deanna is going to be presenting that.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. On this particular item, it's really a two-part item for your review today. I'm going to defer the charter discussion to General Counsel, and she's going to talk a little bit about the charter right now.
Yeah. Before you is the Ad Hoc Modern Streetcar Advisory Committee Charter. It's before you for approval tonight. The committee was developed to provide advisory information and recommendations to the board on matters assigned to the committee. There have been some tweaks to the draft that you may have seen before, and so I'll just go over those small adjustments. Particularly, the term has been extended and outlined so that the term of the committee, although it is ad hoc, will move forward until the operation of the system has been initiated. There's clarity on the advisory nature of the committee that has been included in the charter. The membership has been expanded to include up to 30 members, and so there have been a couple of adjustments since some of you may have seen the draft with the addition of the Sierra Club and the addition of the Center City Development and Operations Department. And then there is also clarity on the fact that they'll be open, there'll be public meetings and the public notice will be posted. And those were the changes to the draft that you may have seen earlier. I'd be happy to answer any questions about the charter itself or the changes that have been proposed.
Thank you, Bonnie. I might just add that the first meeting of the Streetcar Advisory Committee is scheduled for Monday, I believe, June 30th at noon. And you all are also invited, board members are also invited to attend if you'd like to. Just let us know so we don't get in trouble.
Can I have to
Yes.
ask a question? I made this comment earlier on the draft. I've got a question. It was my understanding, I thought that this advisory committee was going to be strictly that advisory and come up through the IGR and Public Affairs Committee to keep it more fluid and open to the full board. So I've got one concern about the revised draft, and that is, I guess on the last page, under additional members, it says the VIA board chair and president CEO shall serve as ex officio members.
I'm sorry, Steve, could you hit your button? I mean, I don't think
It is
your
pushed.
microphone's on.
Yeah, it's on. I'd suggest deleting that and making it so that the full board may attend any of the meetings. I'm not sure that it's consistent or necessary to make just the VIA board chair and the president CEO as ex officio members. I don't think that's the intent we had in creating this advisory committee. And I think that maybe gives the impression or creates a little more autonomy in this otherwise advisory committee that we don't want or need, or was the intent. So I'd suggest deleting that paragraph or changing it to members of the board and staff may attend and participate in meetings or some such language like that.
You know, I certainly have no problem with that. I got enough meetings to go to as it is. And if I'm ex officio member of every board committee as it is, and I'm not looking for more. Obviously, they're open meetings, and any of the board members who want to can attend, would be free to attend. So if you want to make that as an amendment, we'll entertain that as an amendment to, well, we have to make a first motion to approve first. Then you have to
Well,
amend the motion.
I so moved, either delete that paragraph or, in the alternative, to make it that members of the VIA Board of Trustees and staff may attend and participate in the meetings as liaisons between the board and the committee.
Second.
Okay, now, just for clarification purposes, so I understand, which paragraph are you suggesting be deleted?
The
Paragraph
right
before
above
meetings.
meetings on the
No,
last page.
Just the one sentence at the end of the.
I'm sorry, just that one sentence
Yeah.
paragraph, yes.
Yeah, I didn't know if you were talking about the whole paragraph above it. No, just that one sentence.
And I apologize if I'm getting into kind of a form over substance situation or have my lawyer hat on too much, but I just read that as being inconsistent with what the purpose of setting up this advisory committee was, and didn't want to create any separate life or autonomy in this advisory committee that we didn't intend upon.
I don't have a problem with
Sounds-
that. So you have a motion and a second to approve the charter with that amendment?
With the deletion.
Can I get clarity? It's not
Could
the
I-
deletion, it is, because you did it in an or fashion. It is for the modification with the language that you suggested,
Yes,
or the deletion? Either,
the modification.
the modification? Okay.
And can you state the modification again for the record? I'm sorry.
That members of the Board of Trustees and via staff may attend meetings to serve as liaisons between the board, may attend and participate in meetings to serve as liaisons between the board and the committee.
Okay. And that would be substituted for that one sentence?
That'd be substituted for that one
Okay.
sentence paragraph.
So delete
Then-
that one sentence, via board chair and president CEO shall serve as ex officio, and substitute this other language that he's mentioned.
And I do want to clarify that if members of the board attend or plan to attend in the numbers of 6, then we would have to post it as a
Right.
via board meeting. So, and we can make provisions for that as long as,
We
if
can-
people are planning to come, we would know.
Deborah does a good job of reminding
time.
us that we need to let her know if we're going to be attending meetings.
Right.
And if we have more than 6, we'll kick somebody out.
Or is there,
Could I-
Mr. Chair, is there language that can be posted when you have the meeting so that if more than 6 show, you can still have the meeting? It's just,
Well, then you'd have to subject it to the Texas Open Meetings Act, and you've got an entirely different situation. You got to post the notice 72 hours ahead of time. and it's a different environment. Then becomes a board meeting. You know, I think Mr. Alice is correct. The intent was to get advice from these folks
Right.
who are stakeholders for the board. And so, ultimately, what comes out of that committee meeting will come to the board as a form of advice.
Correct.
And so,
You are
I think it's
correct.
something that we need to be aware of. Yes, Richard, you have a
I
question.
had one question for Steve or the chair, and that is the members of the board could attend and participate, but they would not be, if I understand you correctly, members or ex officio members.
Right, and I
of the
thought
board.
that's why we made that earlier change to eliminate voting members
Right.
and just made
Right.
it as members.
I just
So
wanted to
there's no
clarify
voting
that
members, it's
for the
just
record.
an advisory committee.
Right. I think that's important.
So it'd be, so that board members would be free to attend and ideally back up through our own committees.
Having,
The way I would envision that would be if I show up at one of those meetings, I'm gonna sit in the audience and watch. I'm not gonna sit around the table, and I'm not gonna participate in the discussion. I'm just there to observe, and I'll get their advice when it comes to the board as a whole.
Yeah.
That's the way I would interpret that. Is that what your intent is, Steve?
Yes, but enable any board member to participate and add input or suggestions or whatever, and so it makes it a more fluid advisory committee, was my thoughts and intention. I thought that was our original intent in creating this.
to allow the interaction. Yeah. And as in an earlier vintage, having served as the chair of the Streetcar Commission, there are numerous times when that would have been very helpful to get the flow of information both ways on the commission.
I think one of our goals is to try to avoid emulating the Streetcar Commission and go with more of an advisory
Yeah.
perspective.
Right.
And avoid some of the challenges that we had with that a couple years ago.
And there have been efforts in this draft to assure that that occurs.
Okay, so is there any further discussion on the motion? We have a motion then to approve the charter with the amended language as offered by Mr. Allison, and we have a second. Are there any further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that then brings us to, let's see, where are we at in the agenda here? I guess item number 6. No, item number 7, the West Side Multimodal Transit Center Phase 2 construction. I believe Brian's going to make that presentation.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the members of the board. Tonight is a very exciting time for staff to make a recommendation for the award of our next construction project associated with the Smart Move program, West Side Multimodal Center Phase 2. We've been going at this for a little while. We did release an invitation for bid back in January on the 17th. We held a pre-bid meeting on January 29th, and we did, this was a low bid contract. We did open bids on March 4th, 2014, and here we are in the June board meeting looking for approval tonight. We did receive 3 bids, but we did have to deem one of the bids non-responsive due to the filling out of the paperwork associated with the contract requirements. So the 2 bidders that we deemed responsive were Journeyman Construction at $14.8 million and HJD Capital Electric at $18.3 million. We had an engineer's estimate for $16.6 million. So the low bid, or the apparent low bid at this point, it is below the engineer's estimate, and it is consistent with the cost analysis for the project. We did assign a DBE goal of 22% for this project, and the contractor has identified 23.47% of DBE participation as part of this contract. I will quickly mention that with the award of the contract and moving to notice to proceed, we have about 14 to 15 months worth of construction associated with this contract. We will get started on it expeditiously, so that will put us into probably another Christmas present in and around 2015, similar to Primo. So tonight, staff is requesting an approval to award to the apparent low bidder, Journeyman Construction, of $14.8 million. And staff is also asking for a $1.4 million contingency, approximately 10% of the construction value, to deal with any unforeseen conditions as we move forward with construction. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Move approval?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second I think we're continuing to move forward with this, and it looks like we've got well in progress moving forward also with other issues like the renaming and the branding and all that, and I think that's an important part of it as well. We have a motion and a second. Are there any further questions or?
Chair,
Yes.
it's just of note that even with the 1.4 additional, it is still under the next bid.
That's correct.
So that's significant.
And the engineer's estimate, I think.
And the
yeah.
engineers.
That was an excellent bid.
Was a good bid.
Yes. Okay, we have a motion and a second. No further questions. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Brian. Okay, that brings us to a report on the Alamo Rural Transit update. And I believe Clay is going to be making that presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. My name's Clay Smith, the Director of the Advanced Transportation District, and today we're here to talk about and discuss issues concerning the Alamo Regional Transit Public Transportation Program. With me today, our guest, Bill Mosley, is the administrator with ACOG for the public transportation system, and so he's here to present on the Alamo Regional Transit. What I would like to do is just a kind of a brief overview before Bill goes through his presentation. Is prior to 2010, the census, the New Braunfels area was considered as a rural area, which is outside of Bexar County, of the metropolitan area. And because so, they were eligible for rural public transportation through the Texas Department of Transportation and the ART program, the Alamo Regional Transit with Bill Mosley and ACOG, they administered that. Preparing for the 2010 census, it looked as if the city of New Braunfels would become their own MPO, separate from the Bexar County. They wouldn't be rural, but they would be a small urban, still funded through TxDOT, through the FTA and the public transportation funds. But as things occurred, the 2010 census actually combined the city of New Braunfels urbanized area into Bexar County, and through discussions and so forth, became a part of the metropolitan planning area, the one urbanized area now known as the Alamo area MPO. That's significant, and I wanted to let you know that because when that occurred, New Braunfels, the urbanized area, then lost their status for rural public transportation and urban, potentially for urban public transportation, and no longer had funding for their public transportation effort. Because it was now in the urbanized area, we actually did receive some funds through FTA formula type funds, and almost a year ago, the board, y'all approved us to work with the city of New Braunfels and Schertz and Cibolo in that urbanized area to work at continuing their public transportation efforts that had been going on, and continue that program. And so working with those cities and working with ACOG, we entered into an agreement, and the local governments, the city of New Braunfels, Schertz, and Cibolo participate in funding. Previously, they didn't have to participate in their public transportation. It was all funded federally and through the state. And so they're bringing almost 50% of the funds to fund the public transportation system there. So just a little bit of background of how New Braunfels came in, and the part that this board and VIA plays in supporting public transportation in that urbanized area of New Braunfels. And so with that, let me turn the mic over to Bill Mosley, and he'll go through their program that they've got. Thank you, Bill, for being here.
Thank you, Clay. Good evening, Chairman and board members. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to provide you a quick update on the status of the transportation within the urbanized area. This is the purpose. I'll talk a little bit about metrics. I'll talk about how Alamo Regional Transit is organized, who we support, and what our customer base looks like. That's our mission statement that you're very familiar with. As you recall, I briefed you last year about this time as this initially kicked off. That's the vision of Alamo Regional Transit. It's very familiar to you all because it's very similar to the VIA mission. This is our service area. We are funded to provide rural transit within the 12 counties surrounding Bexar County. It's a demand response transportation. Basically, we provide curb-to-curb service. We pick folks up at their residence and take them to their destination. There's approximately over 12,000 square miles that we service with almost 850,000 residents in that area. We pick up at the 12 counties that surround Bexar, and we deliver into Bexar and the other 12 counties. These are just some of the Alamo Regional Transit facts. We're funded by multiple agencies. We're funded by TxDOT. We're funded by FTA. We have a contract with Medicaid to provide service, and also we have fares just as VIA does. Anybody can ride our buses. Anybody is eligible. However, we give a priority to lower income, veterans, disabled, and senior citizens. Last year, we provided a little over 114,000 trips. As you can see, the majority of our passengers were for medical missions. We do a whole lot of dialysis, take folks to receive their dialysis treatments and take them home. And as you can see, over half of all our riders comprise senior citizens. As Clay mentioned, and most of you are very familiar with, if you look at the gray shaded area that's outlined by a blue dotted line, that is currently the VIA service area. The red area is what came out of the 2010 census that encompassed the VIA service area. The red areas that you see on the outside, specifically along I-35, New Braunfels, Cibolo, and Schertz, they were being serviced in the rural area by Alamo Regional Transit. I just want to take this opportunity to say the great work from VIA, TxDOT, the three cities, New Braunfels, Cibolo, and Schertz, who provided almost 50% match funding to do this service, has continued this service. This was somewhat of a contentious issue last year. I brought a copy of the article last year for some of you to see. There were some folks nervous that said no service was based on the article. And I think what they didn't realize behind the scenes is the folks I just mentioned, the stakeholders, were working really hard to continue this service. And VIA and ACOG provided a bridge fund for the month of September to ensure there was seamless service. So this is actually a good news story. The residents have not seen any change in service. So I want to thank all those involved. The urbanized areas, specifically we're talking the cities of New Braunfels, Cibolo, and Schertz. These are just some of the demographics and some of the facts. Last year, based on historical data, we projected a little over 16,000 trips for those three cities. And I just want to point out, with 4 months left in this FY, we are already at 15,000 trips. The folks have realized this is really a good form of transportation at a very low cost. And it's due to VIA's funding. It's also due to the cities providing a 50% match, of which they did not have to provide a year ago. So the cities are committed to providing this transportation to their residents. And just to show you, this basically mirrors the rest of Alamo Regional Transit's type of trips. Over half of our trips are medically based for medical folks going to physicals, dialysis, and other assorted trips. We move school children that are outside of the school district commute zone. 14% of the folks that ride our buses are seeking work and going to work. And I mentioned there 10% nutrition. These are folks on limited incomes that receive free lunches throughout the day. But the key here to this urbanized area is the great work from the folks involved, the stakeholders. And as you well know, there's a lot of agencies and entities involved, and everybody had the common goal of providing transportation to the community. I mentioned this earlier, anybody can ride our buses, and basically it's a first come, first serve. But if you've seen the stats, most of the folks that ride are seniors and lower income personnel. I did hand out, I gave Clay some pamphlets and some brochures that folks can pick up at the back after the meeting. This is just the contact information. A lot of the folks I mentioned go to dialysis treatments. They're allowed to have an escort that rides free. We have lifts on all our vehicles because that is the majority of our population that rides. That's just our contact information. That's our website. Folks can schedule a ride up to 30 days out, and as short notice as 24 hours prior to their requested bus trip. And of course, I'm open to any questions.
Thank you for that presentation, Bill. Does anybody have any questions? I have one. Just what is the? You gave information on the number of rides and the passengers and the percentages for different purposes, and what the fares were and all that. What are the total revenues and what are the total expenditures of this program?
Well, the contract was right at $534,000, and that's the expenses to conduct this UZA
service,
mission, and of which 50% is funded by the 3 cities.
Okay.
And basically, we're breaking even on that. We're meeting our expenses.
Good. So there's $534,000 is the budget, and half of it is federal money and half of it provided by the 3 cities.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
And then, as you saw, our projected ridership is projected to exceed 2,000 from last year.
Yeah, projected at 16,000. We're already at 15,000 with 4 months to go. So we're going to have, and I assume that the costs will be higher, but so will the revenues as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes, Richard.
Where does the local match come from? I know it comes from the 3 cities, but how did they come? Where do they get the local monies from?
In their general budget, Clay, would you?
Yes, the city of New Braunfels, they actually have a 3-way split. It because this was not a part of their funding program before, because it all came through the FHW or FTA and through TxDOT. It became a sacrifice. Yes. They weren't taxed on it. They had to dig into their budgets and come up with them. The biggest was through the city of New Braunfels, their part. So they worked with Comal County, which is a part of that urbanized area, and McKenna Hospital. So it's a 1/3 split with those 3 entities, the city of New Braunfels, Comal County, and McKenna Hospital, to come up with their match. The other 2, it also just came straight out of their budgets for Schertz and Cibolo.
The other 2 are a pretty small share of the whole.
Right.
But it's a good partner with the whole group.
It's split like that?
I'm sorry, any other questions? Yes, Catherine.
Okay. Yes, thank you for the work that you're doing for the citizens out there. But could you explain Seguin deviated fixed route?
Sure. The city of Seguin requested a deviated fixed route, which is basically a small circular route in their city that runs from 7 in the morning till 5 p.m. And the city council, along with Alamo Regional Transit, based on surveys to the community, determine the stops and the locations of the stops. It's basically a fixed route that is funded partially by Alamo Regional Transit and 50% funded by the city of Seguin.
Okay, and that's only within the city of Seguin. It doesn't come into San Antonio at all. Okay.
Yeah, and that's a good
Thank
question, because that component of Seguin is a part of the rural
Route annexation.
portion that ACOG provides. It's not the part that VIA is participating in. Theirs was just in New Braunfels, so that's just a component of their rural public transportation.
Because I did see one of your buses out there in Seguin this past week. so-
Yes, ma'am. So basically,
thank you.
Seguin, we do the fixed route and also demand response.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Any other additional questions?
I just want to say, this is kind of the best kept secret in transportation. Of course, working with the inner city transportation myself, I know that y'all have some, I believe, management of Kerrville, Texas, the actual Kerrville bus station. By the way, change the lock. And I think that this is something connecting the rural counties in a rural sense is a good thing because it connects into a larger system. So I do applaud what you do over there, very much so, because I know it's not an easy thing to do. But I've seen that with the succession of services in the New Braunfels, those people are still connected there.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. We don't need to take any action on this item,
No,
right?
this is a briefing item.
Just a briefing.
Thank you.
Thank you for that report.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Okay, did you have anything else you wanted to go over?
No, that was all, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us then to the next item on our agenda, which is the September service changes. And I believe Tracy Manning is going to be making that presentation.
Good evening, Chair and Board. My name's Tracy Manning. I'm the Manager of Service Planning. And this is an information item for our proposed service changes for the fall that we want to go out for public comment. And so we will take that public comment and come back to the PPD committee and then to the full board next month. And our proposed changes are the, in addition, additional extension on the 515 that would go north from Acrelis up to Fort Sam Houston. Adding Sunday service, 60-minute Sunday service to the 16 and 65 that now operate only on Saturdays. They're the USO Express service to Lackland and Fort Sam Houston. And then also a minor change to the 36 on the southern end to better serve the Texas A&M Business School at Brook City Base. Some reliability improvements to the Looper route, which circles on 410 and Military. And then a minor change to Route 46 that's due to the HEB closure of Main Avenue, and that will not go into effect until the actual Main Avenue is closed. And the last thing is the elimination of Route 600 due to low ridership. It's a circulator route at the medical center that has every segment of it covered by some other route. So first, here's the map of the 515, and you can see we're coming across on South Cross with the Route 515. Right now, only some trips continue out to South Cross Ranch and the others in there. What we want to do is take those and extend up Walters Avenue all the way to Fort Sam Houston. And so what this does is connect also the Promise and Choice areas. You can see the places that we connect with St. Philip's College, Sutton Oaks, makes some very good connections along there. These route numbers also along there are the radial routes that come out from the east side that now you have, you know, a one transfer trip into downtown, all these other locations by having this route, this north-south route connection here on the 515. The next change, this is the routes 16 and 65 that serve Fort Sam Houston and Lackland Air Force Base. And all we're doing, we're just maintaining the same routes. We're just operating them on Sunday on a 60-minute service. That's the proposal. And this is the 36 down near Brook City Base. There's right now the route operates on Military Drive, and we're wanting to extend that down to Sidney Brooks, and it gets closer. We've been talking with Texas A&M and Brooks Development Authority, and they're going to be making some improvements to have an accessible path that goes from Sidney Brooks to the university location. And we will still maintain service with the Looper on Military Drive, so there will still be service there. And this is the minor change to the 46. Right now, of course, we come down Main with the 46. When this closes at the HEB location, we'll continue on Cesar Chavez to Flores to Sheridan, and then back to the main route. The bike and pedestrian path will actually be on Arsenal, so it kind of limits the right-of-way. That's one of the reasons that wasn't chosen. And this, again, has been brought to you before, but it's also gone out on the Center City blog for their meeting that, we'll be having our public hearings for any comments to come in. This is the 600 Medlink route that provides that circulation within the medical center. And as I said, this is our average circulator productivity. And you can see the productivity that we've seen off this route has been very poor. It's a very low ridership. This shows a map of all the other routes that cover each segment of that route. And I think that's one of the reasons for the lower ridership on this route is that they can get there by other routes. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you for that presentation, Tracy. Are there any questions? Today, we're just having a briefing. We're going to go through a public hearing process. When are the public hearings scheduled?
June 30th will be at St. Philip's College, and then July 2nd will be here at the VMC, the public hearings. And then the information that we receive from that will be brought back to you through the PPD committee and then to the full board.
Okay, so we'll be seeing this for final approval probably
Next month.
in August or in July?
July.
In July, okay. Okay, any questions? Hearing none, thank you for that report, and we'll see you next month.
Okay.
Okay, I think, let's see, what's next? The modern streetcar update, and I think Brian's up for that.
Yeah, good evening, Chairman. Jason Rodriguez with my staff, along with Brent Kyler from the program management, is going to give an update on the streetcar program.
Good evening. I'm going to give you just a quick status of where we're at on the modern streetcar project, and then Jason is going to go into a little more detail to talk about some of the planning work that's being done related to the streetcar stops. So here's a schedule y'all have seen multiple times, but just to confirm, right now, we are in the environmental and preliminary engineering phase. We anticipate that we will finalize or get the approved environmental document in the fall of this year and finalize preliminary engineering the end of this year, and then go into final design beginning of next year. With the environmental process, one of the key components is the historical resource. We have submitted the final historic resource survey report to the THC and the city, and we anticipate and we've already submitted it, received comments, we've incorporated all their comments and submitted the final report to them. So we anticipate within the next month or so, we should get final approval on the Section 106. So that'll be a major milestone towards getting the approved environmental document. Also, we anticipate in early August that we will publish or make available the actual environmental document for public review. And we've got some potential dates. I think we're targeting the August 20th date for an actual public hearing for the environmental document, and then we should receive final approval on that document in the fall timeframe. In the preliminary engineering, we've received the 15% plans on those from HDR. We just received this past Friday the 15% plans on the maintenance facility, which we are currently reviewing, and we'll have a review with AECom, who's developing those plans as well. And so the preliminary engineering is progressing, and we anticipate finalizing final preliminary engineering plans late this year. The vehicle, the technical specification, the draft technical specifications are complete. Once we receive the environmental the document, then we cannot give a notice to proceed to a vehicle manufacturer until we actually receive environmental approval from the FTA. But once we receive the environmental approval, we can give an actual notice to proceed to a vehicle manufacturer to begin the design and production of the vehicles. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jason to specifically talk about the stops.
Thank you, Brent. Good evening, members of the board. I'm going to go through a few slides here. We have begun to develop further the stops that are actually associated with the streetcar route as part of the preliminary engineering work that Brent was just discussing. So what we are doing as part of that effort is to put together a book of information that will allow us as a resource to understand what's going on at each of these stops, what's going on around them. We anticipate that to be done by the end of the summer. We'll have discussion about what's in the surrounding area, housing, generators, various ridership levels that we might expect at those particular locations, connections to other bus routes, bike facilities, and so forth, as well as various maps that show us different views, I would say, of each of the stops, and then various considerations. Each stop will be different. I'm going to show you some typicals, which is basically what would typically be involved at a stop location. However, each stop is truly a little bit different from the other stop because of the conditions at that particular site. And then we'll discuss area detail around there and a typical section for the street. This is just an example of one of the views that we'll see. This is, of course, still being developed, but this is one example at Pearl Parkway where you would see where we'd need a new traffic signal, where the track is located, how the lanes are assigned, where the stop platform actually is located relative to the properties that are around there. So this is the level of detail that we'll have very soon as we continue to progress the design work. Just to discuss a few of the amenities that we're looking at, we have been developing a kit of parts, so to speak, for the shelter program that's going on system-wide, and we have also included other things such as what we've called the fly lawn for the Primo service, which is depicted up on the screen. For phase 1 of the streetcar project, we have 18 stops. There are 31 stops total across the entire LPA. Some elements that we are assuming for the platform at the moment are the next-gen shelter design, which is the centerpiece of the shelter program for the system, or at least something that is based on that particular design, and perhaps then can the branding that eventually comes into play that's associated with streetcar would then be applied to these particular elements. Of course, we'd have seating, where necessary and appropriate, guardrail for safety, stop markers, which we're considering using something very similar to what you see out there for Primo stops, perhaps a different color, and of course appropriate to the branding, and then ticket vending as well. We are conceptually considering what we've called at this point signature stops. So that's usually something you'd see at an end of line. We can certainly say that at Westside Multimodal and Robert Thompson, the adjacent streetcar stop to those particular transit facilities would be a little bit different than what you'd see typically throughout the rest of the route, and we are considering that for all the end of line. But as the design progresses, we'll bring that or those concepts to you as well. And then the next 3 slides are really just some typical views. What you see here is what we call a bulb out. It's basically it's jutting out into the street. It's typically where you have a parking lane continuously on that particular street, and so this part sticks out. That means we're in front of the sidewalk in this particular example. but integrated to the sidewalk as well, allowing passengers to be at the stop with pedestrians passing behind. In this particular example, this is something that we've been developing. We will have some of the stops that will be integrated into a sidewalk in some cases because there's tighter conditions. In other cases, we'll actually have stops located out in the median. One example of that being at Westside Multimodal, where we'll have the median condition. And of course, what you see here appears to be a very long platform. I will say that for the moment, we have assumed the longest vehicle that we would purchase, and of course, once we procure a vehicle, we'll understand what that design is and be able to actually hone the design to the vehicle that we do select. So this is just an exercise to really understand what goes on at a stop, how is it integrated to the surroundings, and what sort of features are included. This is just another view, again, a section view showing how it relates to the street and sidewalk. Of course, if this is integrated into a sidewalk, it would include the sidewalk. If it's in the median, it would look a little bit different. And as I said, we'll bring those concepts to you as they develop. And then this is just another view. We're including everything here. So you see there's a guardrail behind. That is where it's appropriate. In some cases, we may not have it at all. There may not be a need for it at all. In other cases, for safety purposes, we may include it. Of course, you have the stop marker there at the front. If you'll notice, there is a little, the platform there is a little bit higher in the center. What that indicates is that in the center part of the vehicle is where we intend to have fully level boarding. So that allows mobility devices, bikes, strollers to just go straight on and off without having to deploy a ramp. And we also, it would allow for people to board and get off of the vehicle very quickly. Now, you'll notice it ramps down a little bit to a slightly shorter condition at the front and rear of the platform. That allows buses to also use these particular platforms when necessary. And in some cases, we'll actually have buses stopping regularly. I think it's about 5 stops at this point. So this is just an example. We did want to begin the discussion in terms of what sort of features we'd have at these stops as we get into the design process. And so with that, we'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you for that report. And at this, I know this is covered also at the committee level, and we had a good discussion at that time. We're continuing to move along with the planning. And you mentioned that the length of each platform will depend on the size of the streetcar that we end up purchasing. What's the range in sizes?
That range is, for the full vehicle, is about 65 to 85 feet. However, the actual middle section where we'd have level boarding actually varies even more. So if 2 manufacturers offer a 65-foot product, their door spacing may differ. So that changes the design even further.
Right.
So there's a lot of different things. We're making an assumption that's the largest, and then, of course, we'd be able to reduce or keep that design if necessary.
Are there any other questions? Mark, you have a question?
Just real quick, we're basing it off a 3-car system.
I'm sorry?
A 3-car system, like a 3-link system.
You're talking about the single vehicle, but having 3 segments?
That's correct.
Oh, okay, yes, sir.
Okay. And then the other thing, full capacity, or what they call crush capacity of the actual vehicle in a 3 system. How much would that be?
So that varies also very much between the vehicles. The smallest of what I'd call not necessarily a crush load, but a peak load,
yes.
A peak load would be about 120, and those are the smallest vehicles. So it just gets larger than that, and of course the reason being is primarily there's a lot of standing room because the purpose of the service is to extend the walk ability.
Got it. And you said level boarding is going to happen in the middle of the platform?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. I see that. That's a good concept.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Any other questions? You mentioned the capacity roughly 120 that's seated and standing.
Yes.
I think what I've seen is reports show a range from 110 to 160. And so that 120 is really a conservative.
It is.
At the lower end of that. level.
So with the, as you said, you're designing for an 80, you're considering the 85-foot vehicle, correct?
Yes, sir.
And what would be the crush load, crush load on an 85-foot vehicle?
A crush load on an 85-foot vehicle, that's
Let's say
tighter than,
maximum load, let's say
yeah, that's
crush load.
maximum load, that's tighter than usual, is about 190 for the largest vehicle.
Yeah, that's when everybody gets crushes on each other. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay,
What is-
great.
what-
Well, thank you
I-
for that report.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead, Richard.
What is your timeline on the development of the concept of signature stops?
That timeline is probably going to be associated with the 30%. I would imagine, though, that it would continue as we finalize that design, and the 30% is by the end of the year, is that correct?
By the end of the year.
Okay.
December of this year. We should have the final 30% plans in December of this year.
Do you have as it expands from the 18 to 31 stops in the planning phases, do you have an expansion of the potential signature stops as well?
That's
Any
cer-
number on that?
And I may not be following, but is the question whether or not that would continue as we expand the system, or?
Yeah, as you go from phase 1 to phase 2, would there be additional, in the conceptual stage, would there be additional signature stops as you expand from phase 1 to the other phase or phases?
Sure, I mean, that is certainly possible. For example, like I said, at Robert Thompson, which is in a future phase, we would certainly have a much different stop condition there, not only because it's we're adjacent to a major transfer
Right.
facility, but also because it's a special event type
Well, I
of
mean-
facility. So that would be one example where at West Side, we would
Right.
expect higher volumes
I
there.
think, are you considering additional signature stops? It strikes me, for instance, and I know that right now you've got ends of line, that
Mhm.
these aren't technically ends of line for the full system. But for instance, I would imagine that there would be a different type of stop, perhaps signature type of stop at the HEB on Chavez and Flores, or that particular area, than the others, since people would be picking up groceries and things.
Well, it's definitely possible that based on, and signature stops may be the wrong word, but certainly the design should be based on the activity that we would
Functionality.
expect at that particular stop. So
Right.
the answer is yes, but that we would make those considerations as we understand the design of each site a little bit more.
There's several of those that strike me along the full route.
Sure, there's several
I
opportunities.
look forward to that in the future.
Okay.
Great. Any other questions? Thanks for that report. And we'll see you all next month. In the meanwhile, now we're moving to our next item, which is the automated fare collection system update. And I believe Steve Lange and Lynn Brumfeld are making that presentation.
I would like to mention that we're going to present a brief update to the fare collection system project tonight. There is an informational memo that was included with your board packet that notes that in March of 2013, we awarded a contract to SPX GenFare for the fare collection system. 4 months prior to that, 5 months prior, November of 2012, we awarded a contract to Luminar Consulting to help out on this project. And so Lynn Brumfield is with Luminar. She recently became engaged on the VIA account with this project, has been very instrumental in phase 2 design work that's critical to ensuring that we have a successful system. And so she's going to cover a PowerPoint that'll give a brief update, talk about what phase 1 and phase 2 is. We did have fare collection equipment that was over 20 years old that was replaced in December. New validating fare boxes were implemented along with Magstripe Media, and so now we're moving on to phase 2, and so Lynn will provide that update.
Thanks, Steve. And thank you, board folks, for having an update tonight. As Steve mentioned, phase one was the validating fare box and the magnetic media, which was implemented in the fall. The advantages you get with the validating fare box is the fact that now I can exclude things like Mexican currency and foreign currency that I was basically had to accept in the old fare box. So some definite improvements in the quality of the cash that you're getting in addition to the electronic fare media that gives you a lot more capability that we'll talk about a little bit. In phase two is where we're going to bring in the smart cards, and we chose to do this phased breakdown primarily because of an ARA spending deadline that was last fall. So that encouraged VIA to spend the money on the validating fare box component, and then now we're adding the smart card as part of phase two. In addition to the smart cards, we'll be getting some ticket vending machines, some retail point of sale devices, which will be what your HEB retail partners will use. The customer service terminals will be the kind of terminals like you see at a restaurant, where a POS terminal where the waiter types in your order. Very similar setup here in your transit center locations. And then a new back office system that's going to give you a lot more capability with ridership data and other information for your staff. Clearly, it's far more convenient for the customer, faster boarding, more options for purchasing. I can now buy things easily on the web and auto-load my card. So in addition to customer convenience, it's now less involved for the operator to deal with. The fare box is going to say, you can get on today, or no, you can't get on today. Much less confrontation, hopefully, between the passenger and the operator. And the passenger is going to be getting better information, right? It's going to have a nice display that says you have $5 left on your card, or you don't have any money left on your card. So hopefully really improve that relationship. Hopefully you're going to gather some new people that want to try out your system by having a modern and convenient system to pay your fares. Again, fare evasion, key, but it's a lot easier to make sure everybody touches their card and gets that value removed from the card as opposed to having an operator have to push a button. It again, takes some of the human interaction out of it. And I think probably one of the best things you'll be able to get is people like Tracy will get better ridership information to allow him to do better route planning in the future. We, as of November 25th, we had the fare boxes in, and I think one of the things that the patrons like most is you can now buy a day pass on the bus. So you insert $4 into the fare box, and you'll get a magnetic day pass that's now good for the rest of the day that I can use on any of the VIA service. I can also now purchase transfers or get transfers as part of my ticket that are good for 2.5 hours. As we kind of mentioned, phase two is now going to bring on these smart card components. Up to the left there is the zip card is the proposed name, and this is the currently proposed graphic that they're looking at for the media itself. One of the very visible components you'll be adding is a ticket vending machine, and the current plan is for those to go primarily at VIA locations. There will be one recommended at the Downtown Information Center. And I think what's great about these is it gives you now unattended ticket sales. I've got somebody at the counter from 8 to 5, but this vending machine can be there 24/7 if it needs to be and available to the public to purchase tickets. It'll accept cash, credit, and points. The other component that we'll be adding, so the fare box is already on the bus. Then we'll be adding the kind of black unit there will be added, and that is the smart card reader. On the top of the smart card reader will be a color display that tells the status of the card to the patron, and the bottom of the unit will be a place where I touch my smart card. Yes, sir.
Is Zip proprietary for something? There's a reason why it's not the VIA card?
Where's
No, it is
Zip
not.
card?
No, it
Oh,
is
it
not.
isn't. Okay.
So it can be a VIA card, it can be anything, right?
I mean, I guess you could trademark it or brand mark it or.
Oh, I don't think.
Branded, I think we do a lot of branding around here.
Yes,
Branded.
yes.
So they should be called
Zip
Zip
card.
card. VIA card.
Yeah. I had Mr. Chair.
Yes. Well, are you finished with your presentation, or you?
No, but I'm
Why don't
happy to
why don't
take
we let them
questions.
finish the presentation, then we'll ask her questions.
So the smart card reader can read the smart cards, the zip card that we're looking at here, but in addition, it has the capability to read a barcode. And we'll talk a little bit more about what we might use that barcode reader for in just a minute. I didn't happen to have pictures of them to include in this presentation, but as we mentioned, there will be a device, a point of sale device that'll be at the customer service, and then a very compact device that will be at the customer service locations in the HEB stores. Just to kind of a little bit about where we are and where we're headed. The phase that we're in right now is a very critical phase. This is basically the design phase where we are ensuring that this system does everything that VIA needs it to do, number one, and that we can use the system to its full capabilities. So we're really, in addition to looking at what the system can do, we need to look at how this impacts VIA's current operations, because things are different now. You know, the way I distribute media is going to be different with a smart card than it is. Hopefully easier for VIA, that it's different now, but how does that affect the finance process, and how does that affect the marketing folks, and how does it affect customer service? So those are all things that we're working closely with the supplier to understand what the system does and how we're going to use it going forward. There'll be a manufacturing phase where they create all these components. Testing is going to be very critical in this second phase. Smart card systems are quite complicated. A lot of different opportunities for what if I do this and then I do that, what if scenarios, usage scenarios, how is a patron going to use this? How is a patron going to try to fraud me? So really looking at a lot of different scenarios as to how we can protect VIA's interest as we go through, and then verifying the system does it. There'll probably be some sort of pilot testing to begin with. Don't want to do one of these big splash where everything maybe doesn't go perfectly, so slow rollout kind of thing. In addition to obviously all the technology, the people are affected here, right? So I've got to train the operators what it means when it does this beep versus that beep, and I've got to train my riders how to use the new system. I know the marketing folks did a really great job on the phase one doing outreach events and going and teaching people how to use these new magnetic cards. It'll be a very similar process. What's great about phase one is they've already got some kind of experience dealing with a card now. So I think this transition from magnetics to smart card will be hopefully friendlier as we go forward. Then the cards themselves will roll out. And that's, again, part of our design process. Who are we going to roll these cards out to first? Are we going to do ViaTrans first because they're a controlled group? We know who they are. They're a known patron to us today. And then we'll move on to the employers potentially. So again, this is all part of this process that we're going through right now. But one of the things kind of in the looking forward category is mobile ticketing, right? So, you can't turn on the television without somebody talking to you about their mobile app, whether it's your bank or your insurance company. So why not my transit agency, right? And if any of you guys have been to an APTA conference or any kind of transit conference lately, there have been presentations on mobile ticketing. So mobile ticketing is simply, everybody, I forget, your statistics were quite high. I think it was over 40% of your patrons carry a smartphone. So, with this smartphone in my hand, I don't need a vending machine. I don't need a point of sale device. I don't need any of those things. I can have a connection that allows me to have a user interface, pay for my transaction with a credit card, and get my pass right here on my phone. We have a little video that we can show you what that might look like, but some of your neighbors close by have been busy doing this. So the video that we'll show in just a second is from DART in Dallas, and DART has they've been very innovative, and they've been really forward-looking and did a lot of work themselves. Actually, the agency was key in actually developing this plan and moving it forward. And now what they've looked at is actually talking about interlocal agreements with other folks like yourself, like Houston. So there's been kind of a lot of discussions going on. Cap Metro, also very close by, they put in a pilot program for the Formula One race last year and now have expanded that. And there are a bunch of players in this space right now. Lots of little companies are getting into this game to, I believe when Dallas had their bid, they had 13 bidders bid on the mobile program. Boston, TriMet in Portland, the New York commuter lines. It is quite the gee whizzy thing here in transit ticketing right now, but because it makes sense, right? It is something that everybody has already. But just to give you an idea of what it would look like. Let's hope our technology holds true here.
Let's talk GoPass. This app is the new and easy way to buy transit passes for DART, the T, and DCTA right on your phone. To get started, download the app off the App Store or the Google Play Store. I got it. Now let's set it up. First, register with your cell phone number. Next, enter the verification code that gets texted to you. Finally, set up a password and punch in your credit card information. If you don't have it handy, no problem. You could always come back to the stub later. And with GoPass, you can even store multiple credit cards. Now you're ready to buy passes. If you need just one ticket and want some of the most popular options from DART, the T, and DCTA, select Quick Buy. Once you've made your choice, check the box to accept the terms and conditions, then enter your password to confirm your purchase. It's that simple. Of course, sometimes you need more choices. Anytime you want options, or if you need more than one pass, choose All Tickets. Now that you've got your ticket, let's talk about how you use it. To activate your pass, simply slide the bar to the right. The flashing yellow screen means you've got a recently activated ticket. Time to get on board. After a couple of minutes, your yellow ticket will turn green to show that it's an active ticket. If a fare enforcement officer or bus operator needs to see your pass, it's all right here. Your GoPass works just like any other transit pass or ticket. It's your proof of payment. You can even flip your digital ticket over to reveal a barcode that can be scanned by fare enforcement. If you're riding with a group and bought tickets for other riders, simply swipe to toggle from ticket to ticket. And anytime you want to see the tickets in your digital wallet, just go to the My Tickets panel. Here you can see all your ticket types: active, not yet activated, and expired, all at a glance. You can hold tickets for up to 60 days. If you see red, it's time to buy a new pass. But GoPass is about more than just passes. It's a complete travel tool. You can plan trips and go anywhere you want in DFW. What sounds good to you? How about the Dallas Zoo? GoPass makes going places easy. The app can tell you the best way to go. The trip planner gives you several choices. Just pick the one that's most convenient. Even better, GoPass can tell you exactly when the next train or bus is coming. You can also access your 10 most recent trip plans for reference. It's almost like having a personal assistant right at your fingertips. Go to events and offers, and you can find out what's happening and how to get there on DART, the TRE, DCTA, and the T. The GoPass app is so easy to set up and use, you'll never buy a paper ticket again. GoPass. Download it today off the App Store or the Google Play Store.
All right. So any questions from anybody?
Thank you for that presentation. I believe, Richard, you had a question.
I did. It was a facilitated question. How many TVMs did we end up with? I know, I recall the original budgeting, but.
Five.
Five?
Five.
And all of
What's a PVM?
TVM, ticket, the ticket vending machine.
Ticket
yes.
vending machine. And the system which we have purchased, that Luminar helped us with GenFair, is easily accommodating to the transition to mobile ticketing as well, correct?
Yes, I mean, again, there's some things that we have to, it was an
Right.
option, I mean, I guess the barcode was an option in the contract, but it was not executed at this time, but there clearly, it was the vision at
Right,
in
yeah.
the outset
We
to be able to
yeah,
get there.
and we emphasized that point at the time of contracting. Thank you. Excellent presentation.
Any other questions? Mark?
Just a real quick technical question. On the technology side, I know that you're saying the quality of cache and all that. How quick is it to change a configuration that's needed in that system? Is it going to be where they pull it into the garage, they upload some software, and then it's done within 5 minutes, or is it something that has to be done each unit, or can it be done all at the same time? Things like that. Say, for example, the $5 bill changes the way it looks.
That's one of those, it depends questions, right? There are many things within the system that, as you say, when it comes through the garage at night, it will pick up things like, I want to change, it's not $1.20 anymore, it's now $1.35 for the base fare. That, as each bus goes through the garage that night, they'll get the new updated fare information, and off they go the next day, and that's all there is to it. There are some things that are going to require a physical touch of, and changing one of the bill variants is potentially one of them. Again, there are many things that you can change. You can change how the print looks on the receipt. You can change, so there are many things you can change simply by running through the lanes and getting new configuration. Some software updates can be done, But some, if it involves an EEPROM change to this little widget down here in the bottom of the fare box, we'll have to physically have people touch it. But many things are done just simply by Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Any other questions? I have a couple, just forgive my lack of understanding, but there are several of us on the board who weren't here when you all entered into these contracts a couple of years ago, and including me, and a little bit behind. As I understand, this farebox implementation occurred in November of 2013.
Right,
And
around right after Thanksgiving?
Right.
I mean, very, very.
Yeah, the 27th.
So here, about roughly 8 months ago. And I'm just wondering, do we still have the flexibility to accept coins? People still can use quarters, to get on the bus. The reason I'm concerned about that is because you mentioned 40% of the people, our customers, have smartphones. That means 60% don't. And we just heard from a citizen saying that we don't care about riders in the east side, the west side, and the south side. And I'm worried about some of our senior citizens and some of our folks that don't have access to computers and aren't familiar with technology and are just used to having quarters.
Right.
And
and
a fare box to put them into. I just want to be sure we have that flexibility to be able to still not run any of our passengers away. And at the same time,
No, we want to
yes,
grow
the
the
opportunities
ridership,
to improve the level of service. And is what-
The previous board was very sensitive to that issue, and I think it was 47% from memory that had smartphones, and that's 2
Nearly
years,
50%.
that's about 2 years dated at this point from the original assessment. And so that has increased, I strongly believe, by that point to this, but it's an important question.
And just out of curiosity, what percentage of our passengers are now using cash as opposed to magnetic strip cards? Or do we have a feel for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it had been
Well,
about
what percentage of the
50%.
dollars that we get
Yeah.
come out of coins and
Versus-
I think about half of our passengers who board pay with cash and half use passes.
Okay, so it's split
That
50-50 then?
That's very high.
Yeah.
It's a very high cash ratio.
Yeah, it is.
I think that reflects the issue of communications in our community. Yeah, I think we need to be concerned about.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go
One
ahead.
more question. The other aspect is the back office question, and you were very articulate in talking about the additional information that is now given to the passenger on the smart card, magnetic card. But we also should be getting additional information. That was one of the major components from buying GenFare, and we would be getting additional data that would be useful in planning routes and in scheduling and so on. How is that working out at this point?
Right, and
And
the
that was
smart card,
Trustees' component.
the magnetic cards have some capability to provide you with more information as far as this route transferred from this one. There's some really nice matrix things you can run that say this many of these transferred from here to there. As the smart card, that level of sophistication goes up even more, right? You can have a lot more, and one of the goals with the system is to get people to register their cards, right? So you not only know that this is their card, but you know it's Mrs. Smith, and you can potentially help Mrs. Smith be more effective in her journey planning, or Mrs. Smith, if you bought a monthly pass instead of buying all these day passes, you would save you some money. So again, the smart card is a lot more sophisticated to be able to tell you these integrated ridership facts.
And the partnership that was formed with GenFare, I know GenFare is oftentimes, one of the issues had done it on their own, but this was a partnership here specifically associated with the back office and the integration with the technology and getting the additional data that we would like to better plan more efficiently and effectively our routes and scheduling and transfers and so on. And I was wondering if that had reached the anticipated level of effectiveness.
I think what's great about the partnership between Trapeze and GFI now is that Trapeze is such an integrated part of your current back office, right? Your scheduling, your CAD, ABL stuff. There are things, because we have Trapeze involved here, that we can be a lot smarter about things like single sign-on. When the driver gets on the bus, he now only has to log on to one thing, and all that information will be pulled down from the CAD system to know I'm running route number 50 today. I'm going to send all that information to the fare box. I'm going to send it to the destination sign. So we've made some real integrated improvements to the operators, experience on the bus too, to be able to gather all that stuff into one place.
Dr. Gambetta, the answer is no, we're not there yet.
No.
I think it was really meant that the smart card would provide that sort of information once we have a back office, so we're still working on that, to answer your question.
Okay, any additional questions?
No, I just had something
go
that
ahead.
I was thinking about, just hit me. Is it the card scalable? I mean, let's say, for example, we have a bus card that's integrated with a library card and things of that nature. Do you all have products like that?
Yes, this is a very sophisticated microprocessor card. It's one of the MyFair Desfire. It's one of
So it's
the
scalable.
top end, microprocessor cards. But yeah, and I think that's a really interesting thing to think about. Dallas had thought a lot about integrating with a library card and those kind of things. So certainly it's possible to look at other applications on that card as well.
Let's do baby steps first, and then maybe later on down the
Exactly. I
road
mean,
it could be something.
One of the things that Via's talking about is for their employee pass, it could be used for your access to the building as well as your transit.
Understandable. Very good. Very good.
Okay, any other comments? I would just like to echo Mayor Martin's concern about the zip card.
Well, Mayor
I think
Martin
I'd like
spent
to have
some
it called
time.
via zip card or something.
Yeah, Mayor Martin spent some time online while she was talking, and there is actually a VIA card, which is a prepaid card, which it's already, someone owns that.
It's a
already.
different card.
It's a different company. Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, so we.
So they beat us.
I went to viacard.com. So it's not a.
I know we had that in Houston. We
Yeah.
couldn't use a Metro card. It's a Q card there
Yeah.
for quick. So zip card is the same concept.
So the lawyers got involved. Okay. Well, thank you for that presentation, that update. I don't have any action to take today.
No,
right?
no.
Yeah,
Thank
just
you
an
very much,
update.
Lynn.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to an update on our budget process. And I guess we're getting ready to get that kicked off here. I know you've been working already, Steve, but you're getting the board involved here coming up.
This is an overview of the budgeting process. It's not as gee-whizzy as mobile ticketing, but nevertheless, as the board chairman said, we have begun the process already. We've compiled capital budgets. We're in the midst of putting together operating budgets, and in July, plan to be coming to the board with a special meeting to address some budget stuff. But let me first take a look at what's in this presentation, things to expect, the elements of the key elements of the plan, some of the projects and goals, and then a brief recap of budget figures. Throughout the process, of course, board input will be sought. There was a board strategic planning goals and initiatives workshop recently, and that certainly is something, the outcome of that, the actual strategic initiatives document is something that we look at real closely in putting together a budget, because of course we want it to be consistent with that document. Key objectives include financial stability, moving smart move forward, various improvements and initiatives, and maintaining cost effectiveness. VIA is a very cost efficient agency, and we want to remain cost effective. If you look at the timeline here, a couple of the key dates we're looking at, of course, as I mentioned, May 16th was the board retreat for strategic initiatives. On July 16th, there is a budget workshop that we've penciled in to take a look at a high level at some of the core assumptions and budget information. Some of the things that we're likely to address at that meeting would include, for instance, service levels, some of the key programmatic things or initiatives. For instance, if we're looking at for a wellness program, some of the preliminary numbers that I've seen come in, for instance, I know there's some wellness program initiatives. There's some spending associated with the fare collection system. As we implement that, there's some changes that'll be needed on the OpEx front. And so anyway, to talk about some things like that, and to seek board input on things that we want to make sure we consider in coming up with a final budget. If you look at the timeline for adoption, we have adoption slated for September 23rd. Plan to go to the board in August with the budget and capital plan details, as well as the 5-year financial plan. I do want to mention that if the board chose to do so, they could adopt the budget in August. There's a board meeting scheduled for August 26th. But the legal requirement is that we have the budget adopted by September 30th. And so we do have the month of September to revise the budget if the board chooses to do so. Some of the key plan elements and assumptions are listed here. I'm not going to read through all of these, but a couple that I'll comment on, of course, are the financing plan is an important element. As you know, we have the ATD bond issue coming up. One thing that is pretty significant looming there on the financial picture is the replacement of our bus fleet here, beginning in 2016 and going through 2020. For instance, we have a total of 337 40-foot buses that are scheduled to be purchased. In addition, we have 30 articulated buses, 60-foot or so vehicles. And so those purchases of buses are going to be, they're largely replacement vehicles almost entirely, and then they're going to be primarily financed with contractual obligation bonds. So those buses, the FTA requires we keep them for 12 years. We actually use them longer than that, and it's time that they be replaced. Service levels are, of course, an important element. Fare policy, and then some of the other things noted on this slide are important as well. I want to mention that on the fare policy item, one thing, for instance, that we would consider with a new fare collection system and with mobile ticketing is perhaps offering a weekly pass. And so we'll be looking at things like that and coming to the board with things like that, and possibly in mid-July at the workshop. Hopefully we'll have that available to bring to you. Some of the key goals and projects are listed here. Variety of different things, Smart Move, of course, the fare collection system, the vehicles that I just talked about, service quality, we always want to focus on that, communications, employee development, the ATD, DBE, joint development, and business process reviews. If you look at last year, this year, last year's budgeting process came out, with a budget for FY14, the operating budget looks like this. We basically have nearly 3/4 of the revenue pie accounted for by sales taxes, with the rest essentially split between grant revenues and passenger fares, others in there at 1%. The total revenue picture, if you look at operating revenue plus net non-operating revenue / expense, comes out to $204.7 million. On the operating expense side, off to the right, that pie totals $185.3 million in the FY14 budget. And if you kind of start at the 12 o'clock position and work around clockwise, you'll see things that are all operational related initially, with labor for operations coming in at 57% of the OpEx picture. Then fuel and lubricants associated with putting service out there, purchase transportation. Materials and supplies are largely spent in the fleet and facilities area, supporting our bus fleet. And so that's operations related. And then the other two pieces are support. We have labor at 10.7%, and then that other at 8.5% is a combination of things. Some of the more significant things include professional technical services, contract maintenance services, utilities, and then advertising fees, advertising, promo media, things like that. If you look at the capital budgeting picture, actually the sizes of these pie pieces should be relatively similar in this year's update. We have a significant portion, over half of the capital spending in FY14 being accounted for by Smart Move at 63%. Next largest is revenue vehicles at 16.6%. Excuse me, this isn't the, I may have said FY14, this is the 5-year capital budget, so I apologize if I said FY14. Here, over that 5-year horizon, we're picking up in the FY14 through 18 timeframe a large number of those vehicles that I just mentioned, and so that's why that piece of the pie is so big. And then other items are accounted for by the things listed. Total spending and funding over that 5-year period at last year's 5-year plan was $566 million. And on the funding side, it's basically a third between bonds, grants, and other. The other being split between via capital at 12% and then funding partner contributions at 21.9%. That funding partner figure total account is accounted for by TxDOT at $92 million and then COSA at $32 million. And that is it. That's a kind of a quick update. You'll be seeing more in July again, but I'd be glad to address any questions you have about the process or anything coming up.
Thank you for that presentation, Steve. I think we'll be seeing you again with another update on July 16th. And I might point out that's also the date that was set aside for a special board meeting to approve the sale of the bonds that will be pricing on July 15th. And so we'll try to minimize the additional impact on the board members' time by having one special meeting to do both those things. I think I have to say some key points here that I think are important. Number one, VIA does a great job. All of this is being done with a 0.5% sales tax, as opposed to the rest of our colleagues in the state that enjoy the benefit of a full 1% sales tax. And because of that, it's got to have a track record of being efficiently run. It's unbelievable. Beyond that, if you look at, and I don't know what the policy is on reserves, but looking at the financial reports and the cash reserves that we have, and I realize that there are different timings for when things are paid and when matches are made and grants and all that. But the cash reserves, if I recall correctly, at the end of last fiscal year were about $46 million, and the year to date they're at about $60 million. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was the last report. So that was as of April, end of April.
Well, the key items to look at are, of course, the stabilization and working capital reserves, which the board policy is to maintain those at 60 days each, and we've done so. In recent years, we've kept at that level. I know when I did a survey 4 or 5 years ago of other transit agencies, there were virtually none that reached their aspirational levels that might have matched ours, but they weren't there and we're there, and so we've done a great job in terms of that.
So if we're looking at a budget of $185 million, and if we have cash reserves, or we ended last fiscal year with cash reserves of $46 million, we're talking about a 3 to 4 month operating reserve. Is that a fair assumption to make? Don't give me the CPA answer.
Yeah, well, the working capital and stabilization at the end of last year were on the order of, could be off $1 million or so, but 28 million-ish each. And so they were each at 60 days, and we're forecasting for this year to have them at the same level, 60 days, and to the indefinite future as well. So we factor that into our planning and strive to achieve that.
So we're matching our goal, but we're not exceeding our goal.
We are matching.
I was trying to give you credit for exceeding the goal, but you won't let me.
Well,
And so
if you want to talk about the exceeding piece, we have funds that get funneled into a via capital reserve that help fund our capital program.
Right.
And so we will not go above the board level.
That 12% is projected from FY 2014 to 2018 out of capital funds.
Excuse me?
Cash. Out of that capital budget you had for the 5-year budget,
Yes.
you had 12% coming from the
That's
via
correct.
capital
It's a
funds.
critical
That's because
component of the
reserves, yeah.
funding picture. And so that's where the extra money goes rather than.
Essentially, that's cash.
That is, and it's again, used predominantly for capital projects.
Okay. But saving all that money and doing a good job allows us to have extra cash to pay for capital projects and not have to issue more debt.
Yes,
On capital projects, yes. Based upon a 0.5% sales tax. I really want to give you all credit for doing a good job here. And-
So I think that, you know, the overriding objective is to maintain prudent policies, and so we've been able to do that. And
I think
it's
we've been able to
reflected
do
well
that.
in the
and-
bond ratings that we got.
That's great.
And that was
Okay.
AAA.
So I might have
Any
missed
other
something here,
additional
but that's
comments
okay.
or questions?
Yes, exactly, that was.
Okay, thank you very much, and we'll see you on July 16th. Okay, that brings us into our legal briefing, and the time is now 7:31 p.m., and the Via Metropolitan Transit Board of Trustees will officially go into a closed executive session. The items we will discuss during this executive session are as follows. Item 13, entitled Legal Briefing. 13A, discussion and possible action on the status of the following litigation in regards to Via Metropolitan Advanced Transportation District et al., cause number D-1-GN-13-004230 in the District Court of Travis County, Texas, 126th Judicial District, and related matters before the Third District Court of Appeals. 13B, Via City of San Antonio Agreement regarding streetcar portion of Via's Smart Move program. 13C, Via ATD Authority to develop, operate, and maintain the Transit Authority System, Chapter 451, the Texas Transportation Code. 13D, Agreement for Downtown Joint Development Opportunities and Patron Amenities. And 13E, State Local Funding Options and Agreement for Infrastructure and Mobility Enhancement Projects, which are executive session items pursuant to the Texas Government Code, Section 551.071 entitled Consultation with Attorney, and Section 551.072 entitled Real Property. All persons who are authorized to attend the executive session, please proceed to the small conference room. Executive session regarding agenda items 13A, 13B, 13C, and 13D, and 13E. No deliberations of public policy or vote taking occurred during the executive session. Okay, I believe that was the last time on our agenda, and we move for adjournment. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, a second to adjourn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. See you all next month. We're adjourned.